The most recent real crime program on Netflix is called Monster: The Jeffrey Dahmer Story. Evan Peters plays the title role in the film, which is based on the infamous serial murderer from the 1990s who was to serve 15 consecutive life sentences for the murder, mutilation, and even ingestion of 17 young men. There aren't many information cards in the conclusion to clarify which portions of the presentation are accurate and which aren't. There are several aspects of the show that are based on actual events. However, some specifics were changed to provide a more dramatic effect. The scene in which Dahmer visits Glenda Cleveland with a meat sandwich as a peace offering was truly genuine, notwithstanding some artistic license taken by the series in its portrayal of the stories. The truth is little distorted, though. Cleveland, who lived in an adjacent building but wasn't exactly Dahmer's neighbor, saw his peculiar behavior and people entering and exiting the building. It was another woman, Pamela Bass, who resided in the Oxford apartments a few doors away from Jeffrey. Cleveland, a character on the program, is probably based on both of the women. Distractify quotes Bass as saying that Dahmer did indeed frequently make sandwiches for a number of neighbors in the building. Distractify cites the documentary The Jeffrey Dahmer Files. According to Bass, who claimed to have eaten someone's body part in the documentary, the phrase alone places this series on the list of real crime programs that would drive viewers away. Cleveland didn't reside in the apartment next door as it was represented on the show, but she did see a lot of strange things happen in the neighborhood and Dahmer's peculiar behavior, and she constantly called the police about it. This includes the time when her daughter and niece informed her of the Konarak synthesome incident. Cleveland did really keep calling the police to check up on him, according to 17. Cleveland again called the police and even the FBI in the hopes that they would follow up and look into Dahmer when she later observed the missing person signs for synthesome, but to no avail. Before being apprehended, Dahmer would go on to murder 5 more people after synthesome. Though Glenda Cleveland wasn't actually there, the account of the 2 police officers who were called to the site when synthesome was able to flee was accurate. Only her daughter and niece were present. When the 2 saw synthesome bleeding, in pain, and seemingly drugged, they dialed 911. According to the depiction, the police officers sent the little child back to the residence with Dahmer after accepting his explanation. Pop Buzz claims that once Dahmer was apprehended, the police officers were fired for carelessness but later reinstated with back pay. While Joseph P. Gabrish was appointed captain and acting chief of a police department, John A. Balcerzak later rose to the position of president of the police organization. Long after Dahmer's passing, both men, who had long since retired, remained committed to their choices. The show gains extra dimension from the racial and police corruption controversies, making it deserving of being listed among the top Netflix serial killer TV shows. In reality, Dahmer and his father Lionel did gather roadkill and dissect and examine the corpses, as was shown in flashback scenes in the television program. When Lionel, a chemist, learned that his son was interested in this, he believed it to be a valid interest in research and animal autonomy that might pave the way for additional studies and a potential profession. While still in high school, Dahmer appears in an unusual scenario where he enters a yearbook photo shoot for the Honor Society, poses for the camera, and then exits. Later, when they notice his face, which is later blacked out in the copies that are disseminated, a group of enraged teenagers can be seen being furious. Not only did this actually occur, but the original photographs have also reappeared on Reddit. Mike Krukel, a former classmate who appeared in the crime film Jeffrey Dahmer: Mind of a Monster, is quoted on Yahoo Life. According to Krukel, Dahmer frequently engaged in such bizarre pranks. Other films like My Friend Dahmer, which is among the most underappreciated films about serial killers, did not address such crimes. All of the victims depicted in the series are, in fact, based on actual Dahmer victims, despite the fact that not all of the stories may have been entirely accurate. Hitchhiker Stephen Hicks, age 18, was the victim of his first murder. The subject of the largely silent episode, Tony Hughes, was in fact a young deaf man who made friends with Jeffrey Dahmer and later became one of his victims. The entire number of victims, 17, was correct based on convictions, news reports, and Dahmer's own confessions even, though not all of their stories were shared. On the show, Dahmer is seen talking to a priest in the prison about God just before committing his crime. Later, he expresses his desire to be baptized, and the ritual is performed in a tiny prison whirlpool. In addition to the fact that Dahmer was baptized while incarcerated, as demonstrated, the event took place the same day that John Wayne Gacy, another infamous serial murderer, was put to death. The solar eclipse that occurred on this momentous day, which was another feature from the performance, was also accurate. In response to Flint's attempts to have a university examine Jeffrey Dahmer's brain after his death, in order to try to identify a reason for why he was the way he was, Lionel Dahmer did argue against her wishes in court. According to Bustle, he asserted that Jeffrey's will made it explicit that his body should be burned. According to the compelling crime series, Lionel prevailed in the court battle between the ex-couples, and Jeffrey's brain was incinerated without any more research being done. Until the final choice, Dahmer's brain had been kept in formaldehyde for years.